This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am Alex Masfer. I am your host for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, so you get those alerts on your phone, on your computer, however you may be listening, and you never miss an episode when we release one. Also, make sure to leave us a 5-star review in the comments, or, whatever application you are listening to this on. We really appreciate that. That would mean the absolute world to us. Also, make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Whatever you guys are on social media-wise, we are on those platforms as well. And we would love to interact with you guys, talk about the show, topics, what do you want to hear from us. We would love to discuss everything about all of our shows on social media. So again, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We have a fantastic show for you guys today. In a little bit, I'm going to be giving my expectations for the New England Patriots. I've been doing this recently in shows, some of the most interesting NFL teams. I've been going game by game on their schedule, games I think they'll win, games I think they'll lose, and coming out with a final record prediction. Also later on the show, I'm going to be talking about a dark horse team in the West that could come out and potentially shock a lot of people in the NBA, not only with their play style, but maybe competing for a championship. They played a scrimmage game today. I'll talk about that as well. And if we have time, I'm also going to get to some NBA awards predictions. I did them a little while ago, but now that the bubble's really started, I kind of want to redo them and change some. So if we have time, we'll get to that. And stick around to the end of the episode. I'm going to be giving you guys the top 10 most improved teams from last season going into this season in the NFL. Teams that have a big chance to do better than they did last year. So teams that have a chance to win a lot more games than they did the year before. 10 most improved teams. Now that everything in the offseason's done, rookies are signing contracts, nobody's holding out anymore. We have a real sense of what the roster is going to look like heading into the NFL season. I want to give you my top 10 most improved teams from last year to this year. We'll get into that at the end of the episode. But I want to start off now by talking about football in California. I want to talk about 3 teams today, maybe even a little bit of the Raiders. But I want to talk about the San Francisco 49ers, the Los Angeles Chargers, and specifically the Los Angeles Rams. Now, who owns the West Coast right now, right? When it comes to football-wise, it's the San Francisco 49ers who just went to a Super Bowl. But I've talked about on the show before how I believe they could fall into a regression after that, really good season. Now, there are a lot of NFL teams. This is really common in the NFL. Once you have a really good season, a season that's maybe better than advertised, a season that you completely exceed expectations and maybe get to the highest level like an AFC championship game, NFC championship game, even a Super Bowl, and you don't win the Super Bowl, you're not actually the team that won. A lot of times you tend to regress, fall back, and it's usually because a lot of people want money after they go to the Super Bowl because they're at the height of their value, they've shown what they are at their best, and they want a new contract. A perfect example of this is the Los Angeles Rams when they lost to the Patriots. Everybody wanted to get paid. They paid Goff, they paid Gurley, they paid Robert Woods, they had to pay Brandon Cooks, who's now on the Texans. They paid everybody, Aaron Donald, and they ran out of money. And then they couldn't get their offensive line back. And what happened? The Rams regressed. They missed the playoffs last season. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen in the San Francisco 49ers, but like I've said before, I do think that they're not going to win this division. I do believe it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks because I do believe there'll be some sort of Super Bowl hangover. Now, is San Francisco losing a lot of people? No. They're bringing a lot of people back. Different from the Rams, which is why I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs like the Rams did at the end of their Super Bowl. I think they'll actually make the playoffs. I think they'll probably win 10 or 11 games. I just really like Russell Wilson. I really like the Seahawks. I really like what they've done with the roster. And it looks like some players would like to play there potentially. Josh Gordon, who was recently suspended and he's looking to be reinstated into the NFL again, wants to return to Seattle. Jadeveon Clowney could also return to Seattle. Antonio Brown technically retired from the NFL again, but do not be surprised at all if he wants back in the NFL, and Seattle would be a name to watch there as well. And again, I think it's Russell Wilson's year to win MVP. So with San Francisco, it's a really open and shut case. They're bringing everybody back. Is the Super Bowl hangover going to affect them? By the way, the Atlanta Falcons, who also lost to the New England Patriots, blew that 28-3 lead. Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator on that team, but also landed him the job in San Francisco. Atlanta has collapsed since that Super Bowl. The Rams are on the decline. Now, in a minute, I'm going to argue why the Rams could be saved and why I believe the Rams aren't going to end up like the Falcons. So the Falcons, I'll get into that now, actually. So the Falcons, right? The Falcons go from the ultimate height. Matt Ryan wins MVP. They lose the Super Bowl, blow a 28-3 lead, and they never reach back to that height. Not even close. They don't even make the playoffs since then. The Rams are on that same path. They lose the Super Bowl. They were in it most of the game, if not winning most of the game. They were this offensive team. Then they only put up 3 points, and it's been on the downhill since then. They've lost a lot of players on that Super Bowl team, a lot of players specifically on the offensive line. Also guys like Todd Gurley's on the way out now as well. So it's interesting to see. Do I think that the Rams now, the majority of the segment, I wanted to talk about the Los Angeles Rams because I saw a really interesting stat. And on my top 10 coaches in the NFL list, I put Sean McVay in there. I believe I had him at number 6 because I still believe in Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is a really bright, really good head coach. I think he's really pro player. I think the problem that the Rams ran into was because they moved to Los Angeles from St. Louis, I think they felt the pressure need to win now. Instead of building up a culture of, kind of homegrown players, guys you draft, then you develop, and then you pay. The Rams went the traditional Los Angeles route. Bring in superstars from other teams, trade, free agents, pay everybody you can, get everybody secured, get the big names, and it worked. For one season, you got to the Super Bowl. Last season, they kept that motto, trading away draft picks for guys like Jalen Ramsey, some other players as well, and they missed the playoffs. Now, granted, they were a really good team last year. And they missed the playoffs because of how hard their division was and how good the NFC is. But I have faith that the Rams can return to the form that they were, mostly because of Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is a way better head coach than Dan Quinn was with the Falcons. I think Dan Quinn was great with the Falcons, but I think Kyle Shanahan and that offense with Matt Ryan had a lot to do with their success of that team, more than Dan Quinn coaching up the defense. And we're seeing that now. Kyle Shanahan succeeded in San Francisco. Dan Quinn's failing without Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. This is probably his last season. I already talked about how I think San Francisco isn't going to end up like the Rams or even like the Falcons. I think they're going to return to the playoffs. But the question for me is, are the Rams going to become the Falcons? Are they never going to get back to what they were? And that would be devastating for them, specifically in a market with Los Angeles. And they're competing already for fans with the LA Chargers, who I'll get to at the end of the segment, and why I believe they're in some trouble as well. The thing is, for the Rams, I really do believe that Sean McVay is a good enough head coach to get what they need and to get back. I think Sean McVay's coaching style is very innovative. It's very young. It's very progressive. It's very offensive. But he's not too offensive. He deals with the whole team. Players love to play for him. In my opinion, Sean McVay would be a better head coach, coaching guys who are younger in the league, guys who are not maybe already proven, guys who are not already getting paid big contracts. Like I mentioned before, a lot of really good football teams, foundations are players they drafted, they groom their talent, they pay their talent. Things like that. And to the Rams, for a certain extent, they have that. Jared Goff was obviously drafted. Todd Gurley, when they went to the Super Bowl, was already drafted. Cooper Kupp obviously was drafted. But again, guys like Robert Woods, guys like a lot of players on that defense, Jalen Ramsey, Marcus Peters was there for a little bit, Eric Weddle was there for a little bit, Clay Matthews was there for a little bit, Ndamukong Suh. Look how many superstars I just named, and it hasn't gotten you anywhere. So why not try a different approach? The homegrown style. You want to know what a team that has really built a foundation and, gotten talent from the draft, from within, developed them with a great coaching staff, the Kansas City Chiefs. Can you name a lot of players on the Kansas City Chiefs that have played for multiple teams? The one that I can think of that comes to mind immediately is Tyrann Mathieu, who got there once they really started winning. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Damian Williams was unproven when he came from Miami to Kansas City, so I throw him in there as well. Bunch of other players. McCole Hartman, who's going to be really good in my opinion. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be really good. Everybody on that offensive line. A majority of that defense. Chris Jones. Everybody. Everybody from Kansas City was drafted there, developed, and paid there. Homegrown. Build from within. Build through the draft. Don't be spending this money on these free agents. Don't be spending this money with trades, giving away all your draft picks. And it gets you far. And I think it makes winning more sustainable. The Patriots did that for years as well. The Rams now got into that trap of just drafting and getting away draft picks and getting the big stars, fell into that LA spotlight. And now that they have a proven record of what they are, I think they need to return to a more homegrown team again, building through the draft. It's tough when they don't have a lot of draft picks. And then I'm not saying I disagree with the Jalen Ramsey, trade and eventual signing. I think he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I'm not disagreeing with that one in particular. But what happens is then all of a sudden your team falls apart at the really important non-flashy positions, right? What's the least flashy unit in the NFL? The offensive line. The Rams, they went to the Super Bowl, had the 5th best offensive line in the league. Perfect, because Jared Goff is not really an athletic quarterback, plenty of time to throw, pick defenses apart, which is what Jared Goff and also Sean McVay are really good at. They're really high IQ football players. They really know how to read defenses when given the time and given the chance to find the open guy. That's why Sean McVay and Jared Goff work so well, and I don't believe that Sean McVay would want to move off Jared Goff. What happened last season? They went from the 5th best offensive line to the 31st. So the 2nd worst offensive line, the entire National Football League last year, was the Los Angeles Rams, only ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals. What does that tell you? Well, Jared Goff struggled. Jared Goff went from 32 touchdowns to 22 touchdowns and a quarterback rating of 101.1 to 86.5. Threw for a lot of yards, about the same completion percentage. That tells you that Jared Goff still has that same talent, still has that same, mentality. He's still getting that same exact completion percentage he had the year before, and pretty much the same exact yardage that he had the year he went to the Super Bowl. What changed? The offense was less good. It wasn't, clicking like it did that year before. Another thing as well, the Todd Gurley cloud was looming over the Los Angeles Rams last year. Was he in? Was he out? It was tough. Not to mention a lot of players also coming in and out. Marcus Peters gone, Jalen Ramsey in, just tons of new faces. Who's getting paid? Who's not getting paid? They don't have any draft picks. But I bring up the Rams for another reason. They did something really interesting in the news. They said that there's a really good chance they run 3 running backs in the backfield, or 3 players in the backfield. It just shows you how innovative Sean McVay is. Now, they haven't done a ton to improve this offensive line, but I think that 3 running back system that was trending on Twitter and people were talking about isn't necessarily for the passing game or even the running game. It might be for the blocking game. I think Sean McVay realizes that Jared Goff needs more time, and if given that time, the Rams could be right back where they were as a Super Bowl contender team. I really do believe that. And I like the Los Angeles Rams a lot. I love Sean McVay. I really like Jared Goff. Jared Goff gets a ton of hate. Jared Goff is one of the most mechanically sound quarterbacks in this league, one of the smartest quarterbacks in this league. His footwork is really, really good. Again, his mechanics, his throwing motion is really, really good. He's a really high IQ football player, and he throws an absolute beautiful football, a really catchable ball, lands really softly in a lot of players' hands. Players love to play with a quarterback like Jared Goff. But what does Jared Goff need? Jared Goff, again, is in that tier like the Jimmy Garoppolo, which is why Jimmy Garoppolo could regress this year. Everything's got to go right. And everything went right that year. And I think everything's got to go right again this year. Can the Rams do it? They can. They got to give Goff more time. Give Goff more time and let Sean McVay coach up this offense, this young team. Again, if you're the Rams general manager, instead of trading for these really big stars and giving away your draft picks, again, draft guys in the 1st and 2nd round. Get young players. Let Sean McVay, a really young, innovative head coach, progressive head coach these guys up. He's super relatable to these guys. Players love playing for him. Super player-friendly coach. Get your young talent. Develop them. Then put them together as the pieces. Instead of getting all these crazy guys, all these big names you have to pay, working with the salary cap, getting rid of some offensive linemen because you need a Jalen Ramsey, an Eric Weddle, and Ndamukong Suh, a Clay Matthews, all these guys. You think you need all those guys just to draw fans and to get to the Super Bowl, when in fact you just need to draft well. You just need to draft well. You need to have good value contracts. You need to develop your talent while they're still on their rookie deals. What the Chiefs do, what the Patriots do, what the Ravens do, what the Saints do. Things like that. That matters, and I think that would be better for Sean McVay, in my opinion. Can they do it? 100%. 100%. Jared Goff reminds me a lot of Matt Ryan, speaking of the Falcons. A lot of Matt Ryan. Very similar player. Can win an MVP, can get to a Super Bowl, could probably win a Super Bowl if everything goes right. The Rams, I think, could do it. Do I think they will do it this year? No, I think they need, again, a solid draft. This year the Rams, I think, will go 8-8, 9-7. Finish last in that division because of how good it is, how good Arizona got better, how good, Seattle is, how good San Francisco is. Next offseason, get a good draft, get a good 1st round pick, get a good 2nd round pick. Develop that offensive line. Give Goff more time. Because I know if the Rams miss the playoffs, and when they miss the playoffs next year, a lot of people will be coming at Sean McVay's head, and specifically Jared Goff's head. They need to get a better offensive line for him. Again, 5th to 31st is terrible. Now quickly, The other team in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Chargers, they had a really unique opportunity with Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady didn't choose them, nothing to the Chargers' fault. They tried everything they could, and I really thought Tom Brady was going to go to the Chargers. The Chargers were in a unique position because they were entering a new era of their team. New uniforms, new stadium. They've already been in LA for a little bit, but kind of really solidifying themselves as the LA Chargers, trying to forget the past of the San Diego Chargers. They had an opportunity with the Rams' downfall, spiraling out of control, the Todd Gurley situation, to really solidify themselves as the Los Angeles teams. Because I don't think LA fans are really settled yet. I don't think there's an overwhelming consensus. I know a lot of people would probably say Rams. Again, Los Angeles is more of a basketball town, a baseball town. I don't know. They want to make it a football town. USC football is even really popular too. UCLA as well. I don't think football fans in Los Angeles were completely settled on are they Chargers fans or Rams fans. I think they'll go either way. My point being is they had a really unique opportunity to take control of Los Angeles because, again, I think the Rams are at least 1 year away to returning of the form that they were when they went to the Super Bowl. If they had signed Tom Brady, they would have had the biggest face in Los Angeles, besides maybe LeBron James, the biggest athlete there. That would have put people in the seats. They missed out. Instead, they go with Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert, who's maybe the most boring quarterback in this draft. Joe Burrow's big, charismatic, won the Heisman. Tua Tagovailoa's story is absolutely fascinating. He's charismatic. People want to see him. Jordan Love is getting Patrick Mahomes comparisons. Everybody wants to see that. And they took Justin Herbert, who a lot of people consider just a stereotypical big, strong arm guy who may or may not work. I think he's a little bit more accurate version of Josh Allen, not as athletic. I don't love Justin Herbert. I don't mind the pick. They needed a quarterback. He kind of fits what they want to do. Like I mentioned before on the show, teams when they move off for a quarterback they've had for a long time tend to go to the complete opposite, especially if it wasn't working. Cam Newton was a really athletic, strong-arm, risk-taking quarterback. Panthers move on from him, get Teddy Bridgewater, more play-it-safe guy, throw the ball short. Tampa Bay, for example, Jameis Winston, high turnover guy, throw the ball down the field. Get Tom Brady, less turnovers, more short balls, things like that. And then you look now at the Chargers, Phillip Rivers, kind of a statue back there, maybe the least most athletic quarterback in the league. They bring in two guys now, Tyrod Taylor, who was there last year, and Justin Herbert, both athletic quarterbacks. Anthony Lynn probably prefers an athletic quarterback. Again, going to the complete opposite. I don't believe in the Chargers as much as others. I love their roster. I think it's a Super Bowl capable roster. I don't love Tyrod Taylor. I don't think he's good enough to win a division, especially that one with Kansas City and with Denver. I think Denver will be really, really good. On top of that, I don't believe in Justin Herbert. I think he was maybe the third best quarterback in this class at best. I think at the end of the day, he could be the fourth best quarterback, depending how Jordan Love does. Again, I don't know when he'll see the field, but the Chargers had a really big opportunity there. You could have been the team in Los Angeles. You could have passed the Rams if you got Tom Brady. Instead, they settled for a guy. Even if you drafted Tua Tagovailoa as well, if you jumped ahead of the Dolphins, got Tua, a face of the franchise. It's just Justin Herbert's scream, face of the franchise to you. I don't know. And again, they have to pay people soon. They got to pay Derwin James soon. They got to pay Joey Bosa next offseason. They got to pay Keenan Allen again eventually. Hunter Henry, who knows? Will he stay healthy? Do they have to pay him eventually? I like Austin Eckler. They already paid him. Again, this was their window. They needed Tom Brady. I think they're slow. So who will own Los Angeles football over the next couple of years? California football, really? I think it'll still belong to San Francisco. I think San Francisco will still dominate the West Coast when it comes to fandom, when it comes to wins. But I think the Rams are a close second, and I really do believe if you can get Sean McVay, homegrown talent, younger players, guys who haven't proven themselves yet, guys who aren't demanding big contracts, lesser personalities, less stars, more homegrown talent, develop within, build through the draft. Sean McVay, I think, would be a better coach for that type of team than the really hard team it is to coach. It'd be hard for any head coach to coach a team full of stars like this. I don't think Bill Belichick would want to coach a team like this. He's never coached a team like Sean McVay has had to coach. I think it'd be really interesting to see Sean McVay coach a team that's more built through the draft. Again, less superstars. It'd be really interesting to see. I think he'd be a really good player development head coach, and I think that's the direction the Rams should move in. Who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of it, my New England Patriot predictions. Now that they got Cam Newton, we're going to go game by game in the schedule. What games I think they'll win, what games I think they'll lose. What is my final record prediction for the New England Patriots? I've done the Cowboys. I've done the Buccaneers. Next up is the New England Patriots, and we'll get into that right after this break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I just finished talking about some teams in Los Angeles, some teams in California, where I think each California team is going to go in the future. The 49ers, who I think will take a little bit of a step back but still make the playoffs. The Rams, who I think really need to rebuild their offensive line and get some younger homegrown talent in order to really contend in the future. And the Chargers, who I think really blew an opportunity with Tom Brady and I think maybe need to get a real face of the franchise before they have to pay everybody. Who knows if Justin Herbert will be that guy. I want to transition now to the New England Patriots and continue my kind of mini-series I've been doing in each episode, which is predicting some of the most interesting teams' records going into their schedule, doing a deep dive game by game, games I think they'll win, games I think they'll lose. Now, I'm here with the New England Patriots. I think that they should and will win this division. When I made my original prediction after the Cam Newton signing, I really do believe that they will be good, and I think Cam Newton will work. Again, Josh McDaniels had a lot of success with Tim Tebow in Denver. The New England Patriots have been known to be able to really reinvent their team, not only year to year, really week to week, and really day to day, and even game to game, half by half. They've reinvented themselves again. The Patriots have won games and won Super Bowls with teams who have, been ground and pound, air raid, defense heavy, offense heavy, everything in between, throwing the ball deep like they did in the undefeated season. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, which they've done more recently. They know how to win no matter what way they need to. Which makes me think why I'm confident in Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick to be able to win at some level, at some capacity with Cam Newton. Now, the only thing, in my opinion, that's really holding the Patriots back from being a solidified division champion, a solidified top seed, and a double-digit win team is how hard their schedule is. This might be one of the hardest schedules I have ever seen, ever, from a team. Now, there are a lot of toss-up games in here. Some I think they'll win, some I think they'll lose. There's a lot of games, in my opinion, on this schedule that are just unwinnable for the New England Patriots. And they're tough, because a lot of them are in New England. There's just teams that I think are better. So let's just get right into it. Again, week 1, Cam Newton is going to be the starter. Week 1, the New England Patriots play the Miami Dolphins in Foxborough. If you remember, last season, the Miami Dolphins ended the year 5-4 with a really big victory for their team, beating the New England Patriots in Foxborough with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm. It cost the Patriots the bye. They had to face the Titans in the first round instead of getting a bye, and they obviously lost. Now, I would like this is a toss-up game in my opinion because again, while I like the Dolphins and I like their team, I don't think they're contenders yet. I think they're a year away on their rebuild. I really like what they did this offseason. They're definitely on the list for most improved teams. They had a ton of free agents. I think their secondary is one of the best in the league now with the acquisition of Byron Jones and the draft pick Noah Igbenogany out of Auburn. I think they have a really solid defense as well with Kyle Van Noy, Shaq Lawson, Emmanuel Ogbah. Added a lot of pieces. But the problem is with no training camp and no, OTAs, these new guys really need to get acclimated with each other, specifically on defense. So I think they'll be starting off slow, need a couple of games. And also the whole Tua Tagovailoa factor, I don't think he's going to start week 1. So we're going to get Ryan Fitzpatrick. The only thing that the Dolphins have as an advantage to the Patriots heading into this week 1 matchup is the fact that they're going to be using the same coach and same quarterback combination going into week 1. Now, Bill Belichick's obviously been in New England forever, but Cam Newton's just getting there. Again, with no OTAs, no preseason, how much of the system is he really going to know? Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick knows the Brian Flores system and knows what he's going to have to do week 1. That being said, I find it really hard to believe Bill Belichick I think he'll learn what he did wrong in that last week, and I don't think he'll let the Dolphins beat them again. It is a toss-up game because who knows what the hell Ryan Fitzpatrick could do. But again, early on in the season, I think Cam Newton will win this game. I think it'll be really close. It won't be a blowout. Again, the Patriots barely lost to the Dolphins last game of last season in the regular season. I think they barely edged this one out. I think Cam Newton makes a couple plays. I think it's low scoring, something like 17-14. I think the Patriots start 1-0. Next up, you have Seahawks in Seattle. Seahawks are going to win that one. In Seattle, already a tough place to play. Again, early on in the season, I think it'll be a really rough win for the Patriots that week 1 game against the Dolphins. They won't look good offensively. They will defensively. Again, I think the Seahawks, same coach, same quarterback, only an improved roster. Russell Wilson's already working with guys. I think this will be a clear-cut victory for the Seahawks. So they start 1-1. Then you go to the Raiders in New England. I like the Raiders. I like John Gruden. I really like Mike Mayock as a GM. They're not sold on Derek Carr, and they're just a really inconsistent team. I'm going to give this one to the Patriots. Again, I think it's a close one. I think the Patriots will pull it out. It's in Foxborough. They start 2-1. So good start for Cam Newton in the Patriots era. Now you get into a really brutal 4-game stretch. While 2 of these games are at home. So after the Raiders game, right? The Chiefs in Kansas City. The Chiefs will win that game. I don't know how close it'll be. So they start 2-2. Then the Broncos in New England. Now, the only advantage that New England has in this one is that the game is being played in New England. The defense will be really good. I still don't trust Cam Newton in this offense to solidify and definitely beat a Vic Fangio coached up defense with Denver that'll be really, really solid coming back. And I think Drew Lock might be the pop guy. I told you, Denver's a dark horse team. I think it's almost impossible for them to win their division because of how good Patrick Mahomes is and the Chiefs. I really do believe they're a lock for the AFC playoffs, though. I think Drew Lock's going to have a really big year, and I think a lot of people will consider him the most improved player. Him or Kyler Murray are the only 2 quarterbacks, in my opinion, that can make that year 1 to year 2 jump into MVP form. I think the Broncos will be really good next year. They're obviously going to be on my most improved teams list as well. So I'm going to give this one to Denver in one of those toss-up games. Instead of the Patriots winning, I'm going to give it to Denver. So the Patriots are now 2 wins only, and they're 2-3. San Francisco is the next game. They're not going to win that one either. So now they're 2-4. Then there's the Bills in Buffalo. Now, I do believe that the Patriots can definitely beat the Bills. In Buffalo is a tough one for me. I'm going to have to give it to New England, though, because of how the Patriots have always just owned the Bills. And I think by then, Cam Newton will hopefully have some urgency. And after starting, 2-4 with wins only against the Dolphins and the Raiders and on a 3-game losing streak, the Patriots will be almost in win, like a necessity win here. And a big game in Buffalo will be huge. So I think they'll win that one and they'll start with a 3rd win there. Then you have a little bit of a soft spot here. The Jets in New York, don't care where it is. I think the Patriots will get a 4th win there. So after a 3-game losing streak against the Chiefs, Broncos, and 49ers, they get back-to-back wins against the Bills and Jets, which I believe puts them at 4-4 halfway through the season. Again, pretty good, really hard schedule, and the schedule only gets harder the second half of the season. Then you have the Ravens. They're going to lose that one. Don't care that it's in New England. Then you have the Texans. Deshaun Watson has been destroying the Patriots. He destroyed them last year. So I'm going to give that one to the Texans as well, putting them again at back-to-back losses. Then the Cardinals in New England. Again, this is a real tough one. But again, I'm going to give it to the Arizona Cardinals here because I think they're going to be a really good team. So after a 2-game winning streak, the Patriots have another 3-game losing streak. That's just how hard their schedule is. Ravens, Texans, and then Cardinals. I think those are all really hard games. Then you get into the easiest part of the schedule. The Patriots' end of the schedule is easier, definitely, than the beginning. I think this is where they have a real chance to make a playoff push here. Because again, they'll be at what now? 4-7, which is really tough. And the final 5 games are Chargers, Rams, Dolphins, Bills, and then Jets. A lot of those games are at home. The last 2 are at home. So out of those 5 games, I think the Patriots will win at least 4 of them. If I had to guess which one they lose, I think they'll either lose the Rams game, maybe the Dolphins game in Miami. I think they would beat the Bills in New England. So I think they win 4 of those 5 because it's unrealistic to say they would win 5 straight games to end the season. And I have the Patriots going 8-8 with a lot of toss-up games in there. I think they have a ceiling, again, of 10-6, 11-5 if everything goes right and Cam Newton looks really freaking good. They can go 10-6. But again, you could also look at some of these games. What if they don't beat the Dolphins week 1? What if they let it slip to the Bills in Buffalo? Then all of a sudden you're looking at 6-10. So again, I think they have a floor of 6-10 and a ceiling of 10-6. I think they'll fall in between that range. I think they're going to go 8-8. Now, 8-8 would, I think, be a win for Bill Belichick and this coaching staff, given, again, how hard the schedule is. Again, you have games against the Seahawks on the road, Chiefs on the road, Broncos, 49ers, Texans, Cardinals, and Rams, and Ravens. Those are really, really tough games, a lot of really good winning football teams. I don't know if they can win all of them. I don't think this will be the Patriots of Tom Brady. The dynasty will continue. I think the dynasty is over. I think this is a new era of Patriot football. But 8-8 could get them into the playoffs. 8-8 could win that division because, again, I would have to look at Buffalo's schedule, and who knows, maybe with a tiebreaker, they've beaten them twice. Maybe if they tie at 8-8, and maybe they do sneak in for that win, or maybe, New England does get a sneaky win against, the Texans maybe, and they get to 9-7, and they win that one. I still think 8-8 would get them into the playoffs as a wild card. I don't trust the Bills enough to win this division. I think the Dolphins are a year away. I think the Jets flat out stink. Again, New England Patriots, only thing holding them back from being a double-digit win team or an 11-plus win team, in my opinion, is that schedule. It's really, really, really freaking tough. It'll be really interesting to see, though. All right, that's my New England Patriots predictions. We're going to take another quick break. On the other side of it, I'm going to be talking about a surprise dark horse team that just showed off a really cool new lineup in the scrimmage games that took place today. And I'm also going to do my updated NBA award predictions. I'll do both of those things in the next segment, so you want to stick around for that. And don't forget, top 10 most improved NFL teams at the end of the episode. Stick around for that as well, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I'm Alex Masper. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just finished talking about some expectations for the New England Patriots. I did a kind of a game-by-game prediction and why I believe that while they're a really good team, I think they might fall a little bit short because of how difficult their schedule is. Seriously, the Patriots' schedule is like one of the most difficult schedules I think I've ever seen an NFL team have. It's an absolute gauntlet. It's really, really tough to pinpoint a lot of games that are 100% guaranteed wins for the Patriots. A lot of toss-up games in there. Again, I think I have them in that 8-8 range. I think that's where they will end up. I want to transition to basketball now, and today was the first day of some NBA scrimmages. They didn't count for anything. Not a lot of starters played, but we got a glimpse of what some of these teams are going to look like, how players look. It's really awesome that the NBA has been able to do this given everything going on with the coronavirus. I didn't find, just some quick thoughts on it, the crowd thing to be that distracting. I think the court could use a little bit more paint. It's really bland, but they have like this kind of Jumbotron crowd. I think that's really cool. They added some noise. The broadcasts that I watched were actually done really well. It was really tough to like really understand that the announcers weren't actually there. You couldn't really tell, honestly. I think it was really awesome. It was really cool to see. Got to see a lot of teams, some of the top performers. I'll get into the Denver Nuggets, which is a surprise team out of the West, but some other top performers. The Pelicans had a really good game. Miami Heat had a really good game too. Duncan Robinson went off. But I want to focus on the Denver Nuggets because there's a little bit of a hidden gem that came out in their scrimmage game today. His name is Bol Bol. If you remember, he was one of the top prospects in last year's NBA draft. Due to injury concerns, I think he broke his foot at Oregon. He's the son of Manute Bol, who was an NBA player. He's a super long player. I'm pretty sure Bol Bol was like 7'3", got a lot of Kristaps Porzingis, but a little bit more athletic comparisons. But due to injury concerns, he actually dropped all the way to the second round to the Denver Nuggets. Now, we haven't seen or heard really anything of Bol Bol because of that injury, as well as he was kind of playing in the G League. He was definitely a project and developmental piece. But when you think about it, his offseason is now. Like, he's almost a year and a half into his NBA career, right? And now, with all this time off and everything, the Nuggets actually brought him in, and he really started playing, and he actually played in the scrimmage today, and I believe he had 16 points, something crazy like 4 blocks and a ton of rebounds and like 5 assists too. He looked like an absolute freak of nature out there. Now, Bol Bol's biggest concern is he's a really skinny guy, but again, he's really long and lengthy. He had a ton of blocks. He can shoot the 3-ball. He really reminds me of Kristaps Porzingis, but at another level. I think Bol Bol could be an incredible player. I almost kind of forgot about him because he's been kind of kept in hiding by Denver. But the thing about Denver is that they pulled out an all-big lineup today. Nikola Jokic, who looked very thin, very more athletic, a lot quicker than he has in years past, probably because of the loss of weight he had during this hiatus, was playing a pure point guard position, and Bol Bol was playing the small forward position, I'm pretty sure, maybe the power forward position, and both of them together were not like a dynamic duo, completely unstoppable. Now, this might be a little far-fetched, but this gives me more faith that the Nuggets could actually contend for a championship and get into the Western Conference Finals, because the Nuggets appear to be the team that's going to throw something completely crazy out there and dare teams, while they're trying to build up their own team and get everybody back in shape, to stop their craziness of this all-big lineup. Again, if Jokic is the true point guard and Bol Bol's playing the 3 or 4, and Bol Bol is actually playing and giving, consistent minutes and doing what he did in I know it's just a scrimmage game, but if Bol Bol is giving you, 13 to 15 points a game, 4 blocks, and just 17 minutes of play, I mean, he's absolutely incredible. Now, who knows, maybe this is just going to be Bol Bol playing a short stretch of games here, in the scrimmage to get him some time, and he won't actually play. But from reports coming out, and everything that people are talking about, it looks like that Bol Bol might actually be getting considerate, real NBA minutes once the playoffs and the season starts back up. And I'm absolutely fascinated by this, because we've always talked about how the NBA is small ball, right? Rockets are small ball, Warriors were small ball, the Celtics to an extent are small ball. What if the Denver Nuggets say, screw all that, and let's just go for large ball, big ball, tall guys everywhere? Again, Nikola Jokic playing a true point guard position. This is absolutely incredible. We could really see the future of big men in the NBA all in the Denver Nuggets. And I said before, I don't really trust the Denver Nuggets because, again, the NBA wants more of the Lakers, getting in, and the Rockets and their stars advancing. This takes a whole different side from the Nuggets. And I mentioned this before. I think the Nuggets I thought the Nuggets were really one piece away from taking that next step. I love Jamal Murray. I love Nikola Jokic. There's 2 guys on that team who could provide a real X factor and be that next step. One of them is Bol Bol. Again, if Bol Bol becomes this rookie sensation all of a sudden, and he's putting up these psycho crazy numbers like he's been talking about, and like we just saw in this scrimmage, he could be an X factor for this team, as he's quite literally an unguardable force on both ends. He was getting his blocks, by the way. We're not pinging them against the glass or standard, rim running center blocks. They were blocks from against guards who were trying to shoot a mid-range jumper, and he was swatting the hell out of them. It was absolutely incredible to see how Bol Bol played. And again, Nikola Jokic playing at that level as a point guard was absolutely fun to watch as well. Bol Bol was absolutely so much fun to watch tonight. Again, it was so much fun to see real NBA basketball again. Again, Bol Bol tonight had 16 points, 10 rebounds, 6 blocks, and was a game-high plus-minus of plus 18 in 32 minutes of action. Absolutely incredible. He had 2 threes, was 2 of 4 from the free throw line, 6 of 14 overall. I mean, things like that are just progressions of a player, and he is an X factor. Another X factor potentially for the Denver Nuggets is also Michael Porter Jr., who, similar to Bol Bol, was a really high prospect coming into his draft, had some injury concerns, still does have some of those injury concerns, and really fell in the draft, right? And he didn't fall as much as Bol Bol did. Instead, it was more to I think the late end of the first round is where Michael Porter Jr. Is who he fell and how long he fell to. I know Bobo obviously fell all the way down to the second round. I don't think that happened to Michael Porter Jr., but he's another guy. Really big athletic wing. Reminds me a lot of Jason Tatum. That is the type of player he is, the new modern age athletic wing. Will he become Jason Tatum? No. But can he provide an X factor, be a spark, either off the bench or in the starting lineup for the Denver Nuggets? Again, absolutely. The Denver Nuggets for me today alone, because now you know what's going to happen, right? The next Denver Nuggets scrimmage, I'm tuning in. Everybody's tuning in to see Bol Bol. How great is he going to look? And then once the season starts, people are going to watch the Nuggets. Will Bol Bol actually be playing real NBA minutes? These things boost the Nuggets' morale, boost their confidence, boost everything, because they have a completely different play style now. Something we've really never seen in the NBA before. These big, athletic, tall, power forwards and centers playing those guard positions, those forward positions. It's going to be so much fun to watch. And again, the NBA is only going to go as far as their stars are going to go in this one. And if they can have a potential, not even necessarily like Bol Bol or Michael Porter Jr. as a star, but just a conversation point, and people want to watch Bol Bol and Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic at the point guard position, that provides them more interest and a better chance, in my opinion, of advancing in the NBA playoffs. It's going to be so much fun to watch the Denver Nuggets now. Again, Bol Bol was absolutely incredible. One of the most fun things I've watched. And again, I'm so happy that the NBA is really looking like it's back now. Going to be really, really cool to see, especially when the season starts. Again, it was just a scrimmage game, but still going to be really fun to watch. Now, for the second half of this segment, for the next couple minutes or so, again, I want to do my updated NBA awards, because the news came out that the awards are not going to be based off bubble performances. It's just going to be purely based on what happened before the hiatus. And in my opinion, that has me change a couple of things. Let's start off with number one. I think Executive of the Year will still be the GM of the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm blanking on his name right now. I still believe that he will win it. I had him in my original, prediction segment. I think he'll definitely win it. He was the best GM this year. Got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the same freaking night of free agency at like 4:00 in the morning. I remember exactly where I was. I was woken up by a ton of texts, a ton of tweet notifications at like 3 or 4 in the morning. It was absolutely incredible. I think he wins General Manager of the Year. Rookie of the Year, I'm going to stay with my original prediction of John Morant. Now, I said Zion Williamson was a close second, and if he could really perform in the bubble, he could overtake John Morant. Since that there is going to be no these awards aren't going to take into effect of, or going to take into account your performance in the bubble and the rest of the season. So again, it's everything pre-hiatus. John Morant has this award locked up really easily. I loved what Zion Williamson did. If he played the whole year, I think he definitely would have won this award. But John Morant just did too much. Even if the Grizzlies missed the playoffs, again, it's just based off performance before the hiatus. He took the Grizzlies to the 8th seed and technically a playoff spot going into the bubble. I think John Morant has this award locked up. Coach of the Year now. I'm going to keep it at Frank Vogel. Now, I did say before, I think Eric Spoelstra of the Miami Heat had a really good chance if he made some noise in the bubble. Again, everything before the bubble is the only thing that counts. Frank Vogel of the Los Angeles Clippers, best team in the West. I would say Mike Budenholzer of the Bucks, they were the best team in the league, but the Lakers went from no playoffs to the playoffs. Again, that has a lot to do with Anthony Davis and LeBron not being hurt. But Frank Vogel does deserve some credit, in my opinion. I think he's a pretty good head coach, one of the better ones LeBron has had, maybe second to just Eric Spoelstra. In my opinion, I think he's as good, if not better, than Ty Lue, which is what he had in Cleveland. Frank Vogel will get Coach of the Year, in my opinion. For sixth man, I said it was either Lou Williams or Dennis Schroeder in my original prediction segment. I think Lou Williams was going to edge him out because of how good he would do in the bubble, better than Dennis Schroeder. Again, none of the bubble counts for these awards purposes. I think Dennis Schroeder will win it for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're an incredible story, a lot of fun to watch, and Schroeder averages 20 points per game off the bench. That's either first or second for six-man candidates, maybe behind Lou Williams. Again, Dennis Schroeder, in my opinion, will have that one locked up, for 20 points a game off the bench. Defensive Player of the Year, I believe I had Anthony Davis. I think he'll still win it. Again, I think Rudy Gobert will be a close second. I think Bam Adebayo, who will also get some votes because he's super versatile. I'm going to give it to Anthony Davis, though. I think AD will win it. I think I had him still being that in my original segment, I believe. I'm going to give that to Anthony Davis. I think he'll still be Defensive Player of the Year. Most Improved Player of the Year. Now it gets interesting, because a lot of people have started to creep Jason Tatum's name into the discussion. It is unclear if he will be a nominee yet, because he was really good before this. He had a really big jump, I can't deny, and I really want to say Jason Tatum. Originally I had it either being Bam Adebayo or Brandon Ingram. I'm still going to give it to Bam because I think he was more of a breakout player than Tatum was. A lot of people already knew who Jason Tatum was going into the season, as well as Brandon Ingram. Bam Adebayo was more of an unknown, similar to Pascal Siakam a year ago, unknown to star player. I think Bam Adebayo went from an unknown to a really good to star player. I think he'll win Most Improved. But if Tatum is a candidate, don't rule out Tatum winning it. And finally, we have MVP. Originally, I had LeBron James because, again, I thought the bubble was going to count, and I think he was going to do really well in the bubble, and I thought the Lakers were to succeed. Again, now I believe it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think he had a better regular season than LeBron. I think he will be back-to-back MVP. He was the best player in the NBA last season, pre-hiatus, him and LeBron James. Stats-wise, it goes to Giannis. I think they're going to give it to Giannis, and the NBA has a track record of kind of giving it to other players instead of LeBron. Again, Greek Freak is really probably the face of the NBA once LeBron retires. Him and Zion Williamson, in my opinion. I think it'll go to Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think he'll actually get MVP now over LeBron. Those are my updated award predictions for the NBA season now that we got that news that the bubble will not count towards those accolades. Again, thank you for listening so far. We have one more quick break on the other side of it. My top 10 most interesting teams. Again, it was so much fun to watch Bobo play, man. Check out those highlights if you haven't seen them already. Now the next, practice game or scrimmage for the Nuggets is must-watch television. I'm going to watch all of it now just to see Bobo play, man. He was so freaking awesome to watch. All right, we're going to take one more break on the other side of it. Top 10 most improved teams in the NFL. That's coming up right after this break. You don't want to miss it, so stick around for that.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network for the final segment of today's episode, and that is the 10 most improved teams in the NFL after the draft, after the free agency. Training camps are starting as early as tomorrow for some teams with COVID guidelines. I want to go through the top 10 most improved teams in the NFL. Now, this is going to be a quick 10-team list. I'm going to be really quick on this one. I think these teams just have the biggest chance of going for more wins than they did last year. A lot of other teams obviously improved. Almost every team improves, unless you're like the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. I think a lot of teams will be better than they were last season, but this just gives them the chance to win more games than they did last year. I think these teams have the best chances of doing that, so let's just get right into it. At number 10, I have the Carolina Panthers. I really like what they did in the coaching staff. Matt Rule and Joe Brady, I think, is a fantastic young coaching duo in the NFL as a head coach and an offensive coordinator. They obviously still have Christian McCaffrey. I think Teddy Bridgewater is an upgrade over Kyle Allen, who they had last year majority of the starting time. Robbie Anderson's a great addition, and they drafted 7 defensive players, including Derek Brown. One of the most improved teams in my opinion. While the division is really tough with the Bucs and the Saints, who are also on this list, they're not going to win the division by any means. I think they're going to win more games than they did last year, and I think Matt Rule is going to be a really good head coach in this league. And I think the Carolina Panthers are going to have a wicked good offense. I think it'll be a lot better than people think. Defense will be a little sketchy. Again, that division is really hard. I still think they're one of the top 10 most improved teams in the league, and that's where they come in, right at number 10. At number 9, I have the Giants, who I believe spent a first, a third, and a fifth round pick on their offensive line to protect Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. I don't know if Joe Judge can coach or not, but just because they improve their offensive line means better yardages and better holes for Saquon and more time for Daniel Jones to really develop. I think they're a better team overall, and Evan Ingram will be coming back, who I believe had an injury last season. So they're one of the most improved teams, in my opinion. They come in at number 9, the New York Giants, because of how well they did with their offensive line, completely revamped it again. Andrew Thomas in the first, another guy in the third, another guy in the fifth. Revamping that offensive line, getting that team back to a running attack with Saquon Barkley will be key to Daniel Jones' development. Who knows if Joe Judge can coach or not, but again, number 9 comes in at the Giants. Number 8 is the Ravens. They're only low on this list because they didn't improve as much as some of these other teams. Again, not that they needed to. They're one of the best teams in the league already. Getting Calais Campbell and Patrick Queen and J.K. Dobbins, though, absolutely incredible. Again, if any team has the potential on paper roster-wise to go 16-0, it's them. They have the best roster in the league, in my opinion. Will it translate to more wins than the Chiefs? I'm not sure, or even translate to a Super Bowl. I don't know about all that, but again, they're going to be a really good regular season team, and Lamar Jackson's always going to kill it in the regular season when the level of competition isn't as good as the playoffs. The playoffs is where Lamar could struggle, but again, the regular season will be really, really good. I think the Ravens will win more games than they did last year, maybe by only one game, but still, they improved. Again, Calais Campbell, Patrick Queen, and J.K. Dobbins added to that rush attack, as well as some other people as well. Really, really interesting. One of the most improved teams in the league. They're at number 8. Number 7 is the Buffalo Bills. The big acquisition obviously being Stephon Diggs. I don't like Josh Allen a lot as a quarterback. I don't think he's good. I think he's super inconsistent. I think he's a mid-tier quarterback at best. But Stephon Diggs can't hurt. Will make any quarterback look good. He's one of the best route runners in the league. One of the best deep threats in the league as well. Stephon Diggs is a huge addition. Again, that's really their big addition. But again, since they nailed it on that aspect, I think the Buffalo defense will be really good. They do have the potential to win more games than they did last year if Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen takes a big leap. Some people believe Josh Allen could be a potential MVP candidate. I've done segments in the past saying I don't think that to be the case. But there is the potential there, and there totally could be a chance in a world where Josh Allen really kills it this year, and Stephon Diggs would be a big reason of that. So they really did improve. Also, addition by subtraction, Tom Brady leaving the Patriots also helps improves their team. They're coming in at number 7. At number 6, I had the Cleveland Browns, who really revamped their offensive line. Jack Conklin at right tackle, and then what's his name out of Alabama at left tackle. Not Tristan Wirfs, the other one, excuse me. I'm blanking on his name right now. He's really good as well. Both of those left tackle positions are more solidified now. Also, I think they had a huge upgrade at coaching with Kevin Stefanski. He's really, really good as an offensive mind. I've compared this team a lot to that Kevin Stefanski-led offensive team with Case Keenum in the Vikings, where I believe they went 13-3 that year. I don't think they'll go 13-3 because their division is really hard. But the Browns, I can almost guarantee you, will win more games than they did last season, and I do believe they'll make the playoffs. They're super improved. They come in at number 6. At number 5, I have the Denver Broncos. Again, Bronco fans have been calling this the orange blur offensive attack. Getting KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Melvin Gordon, a lot of players, and Drew Lock is going to take a big step next year, so I think that helps their improvement as well. I think they're a top 5 most improved team in the league. They come in at number 5. Again, that wide receiving core, they upgraded the wide receiving core, I think, better maybe than anybody else as a whole unit. They didn't get the best wide receivers. Again, the Cardinals got, DeAndre Hopkins, who we'll talk about in a minute. Same with the Saints, got Emmanuel Sanders. The Bills even got Stephon Diggs. But to add a whole new offensive scheme and new side of offensive play that you can add, this team with speed surrounded with Drew Lock, again, Melvin Gordon as well, that puts them in at number 5 for me. Number 4, the New Orleans Saints. The big one here being Emmanuel Sanders, just another tool, another toy for Drew Brees and Sean Payton to play with. Will be a lot of fun to watch. I'll keep it short with them. They're a more improved team. I think they'll have a better year than they did last year. Dark horse Super Bowl candidate for me. Next up, Arizona Cardinals. They obviously improved dramatically. Got a guy like Isaiah Simmons who could be a really, really awesome player in this league. Kind of an athletic freak on the defensive end. And of course, Nuke DeAndre Hopkins. One of the best receivers in the league, if not the best. He goes to Arizona for pretty much nothing, considering his value. They upgraded a lot, and I think Kyler Murray will take a big step. That's why they're coming in at number 3. Number 2, I have the Miami Dolphins. They added more players than anybody else. Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy, Emmanuel Ogbah, Shaq Lawson, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, just to name a few. Tua Tagovailoa as well. How can I forget him? A lot of players all over this team. I think they'll be really good in a year or two. I still think they're young and 1 year away, But again, Byron Jones, all these guys, Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy, the big offseason acquisitions, as well as Tua Tagovailoa. Just on paper, they really improved. They'll win more games than they did last year, which I believe was 5. I think they'll get into that 6 or 7, maybe even 8 range for the Dolphins next season. I think they'll win more games than they did last year. Dolphins look to be really set for the future. One of the most improved teams this offseason. Number 1, you already knew who this was going to be. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, adding Brady and Gronk. Absolutely ridiculous. Took them from a missing the playoff team to a Super Bowl contender, if not one of the Super Bowl favorites. I love everything about the Bucs this season. They're going to have a great year. Definitely the most improved team in the league. In my opinion, that is going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on all social medias and leave us a 5-star review. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.